to Covering the Fields with your host, Joe Ellison.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Covering the Field, the weekly program that analyzes all sports, handicaps them, and makes predictions. I'm your host, Joe Ellison, and today we're going to talk about pro football, college football and basketball, hockey, the NBA, Medina Spirit, and our You Got Host segment. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Please give us your feedback, tell us your You Got Host stories, and visit our coveringthefield.com website daily to check out our many articles and our picks of the day and week. Find us on Twitter at coveringfield. Now, kicking things off this week, I'd like to introduce our football expert, Big Richard Martin. How you doing today?
Doing great. How are you today, Joe?
Doing great. So, Big Rich, what happened during lucky week 13 in the National Football League?
Well, the same teams are dominating. It seems like they're in a good pattern right now. You got Tampa Bay. They're rolling over. They rolled over Atlanta. They seem to be pretty dominant in the NFC. Arizona's back. Kyler Murray, back from injury. He looks like he's on an MVP type of season, even after missing a couple games. Miami, how about them? Winning 5 straight in a row. They're rolling. And New England seems to be the team in the AFC. So, I mean, right now, would that be a great Super Bowl? New England, Tampa Bay?
That'd be the Tom Brady Bowl.
The Tom Brady,
Belichick.
Belichick. So is it the master or the teacher?
I've got money on both of them to win the Super Bowl, so I'm totally okay with that.
Okay. You couldn't lose then.
Well, yeah. We've got some other ones, too.
All right.
Dallas and Tennessee. Sorry about Derrick Henry not playing anymore, but he might be back for the playoffs.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, New England now is the number 1 seed. They won their 7th straight in that windstorm, and now they go into a bye week. Mac Jones, only 3 pass attempts, and Josh Allen, 30 pass attempts. See, that doesn't bode well for Buffalo. Their inability to run the ball, because when the weather starts getting bad,
right,
you got to be able to run the ball.
And, you know, being from Buffalo, you think that would build their team around a good running team, being from Buffalo with the bad weather they have up there.
Well, their best runner is their quarterback, Josh Allen. So
absolutely.
And now they're down to a number 7 seed. Baltimore is down to a number 3 seed after losing at Pittsburgh. They went for that 2-point conversion and lost by a point. You got Justin Tucker, hasn't missed an extra point in like years.
Right.
And then the excuse for Harbaugh, head coach, is the corners were hurt.
They were. Marlon Humphreys is out for the season. He had a pectoral injury, and he's out for the season. And that's actually Baltimore's 6th defensive back they've lost this year. So maybe it was a good gamble for him. I mean, a good pass. You know, Andrews walks in with it. But I actually lost it because I had 3.5, so it didn't really matter. I was hoping it would go to overtime and maybe they'd get a touchdown.
Well, I kind of thought they might go to overtime just because the Steelers had to play on Thursday. Maybe make them play some more, soften them up a little bit. But that didn't happen.
No.
And, the play could have worked, just bad execution.
Exactly. He was open for sure.
Yep. Kansas City is now the number 4 seed, having won 5 straight. How about Detroit? First win of the year.
Yeah, I mean, if they get another win, if they get another win, they won't get any, they'll pick 3rd because there's 2 teams with 2 wins this year, so they would have the tiebreaker with their tie they have. So, you know, if they want that first quarterback, or they want to draft first, they definitely they can't win anymore.
They seem to be trying. They haven't given up on the season.
Absolutely.
So Minnesota had 3 missed 2-point conversions. The first one was with like 7 minutes left in the 3rd quarter, and they're down by 5, and they're going for 2 to cut it down to 3. And once they screwed that one up,
right,
then they had to go for the next one,
right,
and then they had to go for the next one, and that ended up costing them the game.
So we can call them the Lucky Lions.
Yes, they were lucky for sure. And, of course, Washington winning 4 straight. They would be in the playoffs if they started today.
Absolutely. And they got a big game against your Dallas Cowboys, and looking forward to that divisional battle.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of injury, quarterback, and COVID news do we have this week?
All right, well, we'll just start with our Chicago Bear, our producers, Chicago's Bears. Justin Fields is going to make the start this week for Chicago. He has cracked ribs, and you know how painful that is. But they say it's their best chance to win, so they're going to put him in there. And Andy Dalton's dealing with another type of injury, so they said they're going to go with Justin Fields. So Calvin Kamara practiced today, so not full practice, but he did practice. So he's been out for about 4 weeks, and so I know everybody, if you have him on your fantasy leagues, are crossing their fingers he can come back. Actually, Delvin Cook practiced today. He was not due to come back till week 15. He practiced today, and he is questionable for Thursday. And you know, so some of us that have Delvin Cook on our team, we're looking forward to him coming back this week. So hopefully he can have a quick recovery than they expected and get him back on the football field. Jamal Adams for Seattle. Our brother Ronnie's Seahawks. Jamal Adams out for the year. You know, they gave a lot of draft picks to get him, and he's the cornerstone of that defense. So that's a big blow for Seattle. They looked good last week against San Francisco. Again, another one of my picks that I didn't hit. But, you know, I thought they had the ball. They could have went down there and tied it. I think that they had a chance. Tough place to play. It's good to see Russell Wilson look like he's back.
San Francisco didn't score any points in the second half. And you can credit Jimmy Garoppolo for that. Taking the safety and the turnovers, and played very poorly in the second half.
You can't make those mistakes when you're playing up there in Seattle. It's definitely the 12th man up there. Montez Sweat is out with a COVID protocol, so he won't be playing defense this week for Washington. Another COVID, we have Mike Williams today popped up on the COVID. He is also unvaccinated, so those guys are 10 days minimum. They will not be able to play.
Keenan Allen could play
if he has 2 positive.
Mike Williams
has 2 negative tests. Mike Williams will not play.
Okay.
But it doesn't look like, when you see it this late in the week, it's hard to get 2 positives in wear. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but definitely the LA Chargers are going to be needing those guys going into New York.
Well, Adam Thielen is going to be out for Minnesota. He got hurt. They certainly needed him last week. It could have been very helpful. Dalvin Cook, not necessarily, because they have Alexander Madison,
right?
Really good player. They don't need to rush Dalvin Cook back. Darren Waller could play for Las Vegas. Julio Jones very well could come back for Tennessee, and they certainly need some help there. With A.J. Brown out for another couple weeks. This New York Giants situation at quarterback.
Right.
Daniel Jones is out. Mike Glennon in concussion protocol.
Right.
You got Jake Fromm, just signed off the Bills practice squad just last week.
Yeah, the Georgia quarterback.
Could be starting. But,
welcome to the NFL. Here's the LA Chargers, and Boza's going to be breathing down your neck. So Boza did go out. I didn't see him. Did you get him on the injury list? He was out second half of that Cincinnati game last week, so we have to keep an eye on if he's going to play or not, because he makes a big difference on that pass rush. And also Joe Burrow's pinky.
Yes.
He had a dislocated pinky against that game, and you know, they're doing everything they can, but he seems like he's going to play through that.
Joe Mixon got a little banged up, but it looks like Burrow and Mixon are going to play.
Right.
Yes.
But how effective can you be with a dislocated, you know, pinky on your thrown end? I just think it's just I think he's going to play. He'll you know, it's just more of the handoffs what could be the problem, especially if it's cold out there in New York.
Right. And one non-injury related, Tampa Bay wide receiver Antonio Brown suspended. So he'll be out for another 3 games for a fake vaccination or
vaccination card. Yeah, he gave a phony ID for the vaccination card. Him and 3 other players, and you know, just the dude just can't learn to stay out of his own way, I guess.
Not the brightest bulb on the tree there. So Big Richard. One last note: scheduling quirk. Cleveland is playing Baltimore for the 2nd consecutive game. Baltimore had a game in between, but Cleveland had Baltimore bye week, and now Baltimore again.
Right.
Okay. So, Big Richard, your picks went 2-2 last week. Who are you liking in Week 14?
Well, I'm going to go with the Browns. I think the Browns come back. I think, like you said, those DBs are all banged up for Baltimore. They're at home. Dog pound. Myles Garrett's going to get after Lamar Jackson. He's thrown 8 interceptions in the last 5 games. He's just not he's not himself. It doesn't look comfortable back there, not making good decisions. Take the Browns. Another one I like is Kansas City at the Raiders. They smashed them 41-14 in week 5. I think they go ahead and do it. They're at home this week. I think the Kansas City's defense is playing very, very tough right now. And it seems like that offense can just win it. It's like gasoline, wins in a night. And I think that they're going to get going on that. And I am going to take Cincinnati. They're at home against San Francisco, and they're getting a point. I think they have to bounce back. It seems like they're the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde team. They bounce one week, they get good. The next week, they just had a horrible first half against the LA Chargers. And so I think they bounce back, and Mixon will have a good game. I also going to take, like you said, I'm going to take the LA Chargers. They're at New York to give them 10.5. Like you said, Mike Glenn's under the concussion protocol, so it's a non-doctor from the Giants that gets to make if he can play or not. He did not practice all week. Regardless, he couldn't practice. And like you said, Daniel Jones, they did have him listed as questionable, but he looks like he's out. So let's take the LA Chargers, and they start to make that AFC West a little bit more closer with the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right. Well, you didn't pick any of mine. My picks went 2-0 last week. Arizona covered at Chicago. Kansas City and Denver went under. I've gone a perfect 4-0 the last 2 weeks. Pat myself on the back a little bit.
You should pat yourself on the back. You have a little fat wallet there.
Yeah, I actually did win last weekend. My first pick this week in the Sunday night game, my producer isn't going to like this, but I like Green Bay minus 12.5 against Chicago. Chicago will be starting rookie quarterback Justin Fields, as we mentioned, as he recuperates from broken ribs. But according to my numbers, the Bears 1-5-1 against the spread in their last 7 and 2-4 on the road.
Yeah.
Green Bay is amazing. 9-1-1 against the spread in their last 11. A perfect 5-0 at home. Packers won the first meeting against Fields in Chicago by 10, and they're rested coming off their bye week. And as we all know, quarterback Aaron Rodgers still owns the Bears. Just ask him.
Yep. Yeah, so, exactly. He'll tell you, and we can see the tears welling up in my producer's eyes right now, but it's going to be okay.
My second pick, I like Baltimore and Cleveland to go under 42, so I guess we're going to go Cleveland and under.
Right.
Baltimore has gone 4 consecutive games under and 4 straight road games under. Cleveland has gone 4-1-1 under at home, according to my numbers. When these teams played in Baltimore just 2 weeks ago, final score was 16-10.
And a yawner.
Yeah. Well, it was exciting because it was close, but not exciting as far as scoring.
Right.
Right. Moving on to college football now. What was the big news last week?
Well, the big news, in the NCAA, everybody got in who should have been there. The top 4, Alabama goes there and lays a whooping on Georgia in the Georgia Dome and just smashed them. And they just look like they're there. I mean, when Bryce Young's on, that offense is electric. And he had a great game. And I don't know, do they go to J.D. Daniels now? I mean, that's the question now. I mean, how long are they going to stay with the quarterback they have?
Stetson Bennett?
Stetson Bennett, yeah. I mean, he's had a good season, and I know that, it seems like the coach didn't even think about pulling him out of that game, but I was like, let's just,
see what happens.
See what happens, because obviously he wasn't getting it done.
Well, I'll tell you, Bama, you mentioned Jekyll and Hyde. Hyde must have been hiding the week before. They're lucky to score more than 3 points against Auburn the week before. Then they score 41 against Georgia, the best defense in the country, giving up 6.9 points a game.
And they gave up, 44 or 41 or something like
41,
that? 41
yeah.
points.
421 yards passing.
Yeah, I mean. And
that's just unbelievable.
Bryce Young was definitely looking like a top candidate for the Heisman Trophy in that game.
Okay, and what else happened?
Baylor knocked out Oklahoma State. That was a great game. Backup quarterback Blake Shapen, we told you that the starting quarterback was out. He goes in there and goes 17 for 17, and the first 17 passes, he was perfect. He was 23 for 28, 3 touchdowns, played a great game, got knocked out, still got up, and he got the job done for Baylor. So they knocks out any type of Oklahoma State chance to get into the Final Four. Michigan just crushes Iowa, and Cincinnati beat a good Houston team 35-20.
Right. Well, Oklahoma State fell just inches short against Baylor. That 4th down play.
Right.
The time before, they get down to the 1, end up kicking a field goal.
Right.
Then they get down there and just...
I mean, that was, 8 plays inside the 5, and they couldn't get it, punch it in.
Couldn't get it in.
And just give Baylor defense, they stepped up. And like you said, he had that sweep, looked like he was going to score over that pylon, and the game of inches. But Baylor looked like the better team. I think they deserve to win that.
I can't name a sport that isn't a game of inches, actually, if you really think about it. But yes, that was just 2 or 3 inches from Oklahoma State being in the playoff, possibly knocking out Cincinnati. That would have been a debate.
Right.
And
then we wouldn't know.
We didn't have to
we
deal
don't
with
have to
that.
deal with it. And you don't have to take any Pepto-Bismol. The right 4 teams got in.
I was getting ready to get very upset.
And then you're very upset at Alabama, and they just showed that when they're on top. I mean, how do you bet against Nick Saban? And you just don't know.
Yeah.
That team is always going to be there. And there's once again, that was my pick to win the championship on our very first show here, and here they are, number 1 going in.
I don't remember who I picked, but I know I didn't pick. I probably picked Oklahoma because that's my favorite team. But yes, Michigan was unranked in the preseason. That's the first ever team to be unranked to end up in the playoff. And
Right.
that's our buddy Damani Ranch's Cade McNamara, the quarterback,
Absolutely.
leading the Wolverines. So I'm definitely rooting for them.
Good.
And Cincinnati, the first non-Power 5 conference team, finishing 13-0 to make the playoff.
Right. It kind of reminded me of that team, that Boise State team that got in and beat your Oklahoma Sooners in the Fiesta Bowl. And that Boise State got that big win. I think it was that's a few years back, but that was they kind of remind me of them. They have a dating myself here.
Right. Well, if Cincinnati would have lost, then we would have had a mess.
Right.
Because Notre Dame's one loss was at home to Cincinnati. Brian Kelly, head coach, has already left for LSU.
Right.
Were they even to put them in there? But congratulations to Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame's defensive coordinator.
Right.
Black gentleman, 35 years old, never been a head coach. Quite the story for Notre Dame.
Well, their defense has been playing lights out the last couple of years, and it was well deserving. And they're keeping their offensive coordinator, so everything's going to be looks like it's going to be good out there in South Bend.
Yep. And Ohio State would have been the next one on the list at number 6, but they have 2 losses.
Right.
That's see, my 8-team model for the playoffs would have also had no controversy. The 5 conference champions, Notre Dame, if they were eligible, which in this time with only 1 loss, they were. Cincinnati, I said if there was a non-Power 5 team that went undefeated, they definitely deserved to be in the final 8. We had one.
And what does that do? It shows you that everybody wants them in there, but they're a 13.5-point dog, and it'll probably be 14 by the time kickoff is.
Yeah, I expect that to go up. So the next 4 teams, I would have had Notre Dame, Pac-12 champion Utah, Big 12 champion Baylor, and ACC champion Pittsburgh. So Ohio State would have been still left out and upset in complaining for a 12-team playoff.
Right, and then we just can't take it down to 12. You know that, Joe. That's ridiculous.
I think 8 is plenty. I think given it the first 4 teams a bye week in the first round,
right,
everybody's got to play the same amount of playoff games.
Right, I agree with that.
Just make that fair.
Right.
And speaking of coaching, we were talking about Notre Dame's coach. Nevada head coach Jay Norvell dropped a bombshell on Northern Nevada, leaving the conference foe Colorado State.
Yeah, how's that a better job?
Well, it's only the money.
Well,
yes, I'll get to that in a minute. Here's Norvell Sunday, his quote, "Really excited to hear that we are going to Detroit." That's where the Quick Lane Bowl is.
Oh, okay.
But who's we?
Yeah.
It wasn't him. It just a shocker how things can change in one day.
Well, he's losing Carson Strong, and I know the receiver that got hurt. So it's a rebuilding season. Maybe he sees some better things. But like you said, money talks. And
Well, that's not going to be a very good bowl game to go to either. It's Monday, December 27th at 8 in the morning. We're used to playing games, Nevada, at 8 p.m., not 8 a.m., so that's just not a favorable situation.
One thing you got to watch these bowls, and we'll be bringing that out, that the players that aren't playing in these bowls, like we're not even sure Carson Strong will play in that game.
That's true.
So we have to keep an eye on that. The Final Four, they'll play all their starters. Everybody will go to those. But there's other ones. When Christian McCaffrey started that with the Rose Bowl, when he set out that for Stanford, and now it seems like that's the trend. So we have to really keep track of who's playing, who's not playing, because that's going to really
absolutely. So Steve Adazio was Colorado State's last coach. $1.5 million this year. Norvell is now getting paid $1.8 million, and he was getting paid $625,000.
Well, I think that's reason to go.
I think that's the only main reason.
Well, that's $1 million reason.
He went from the lowest paid Mountain West coach to the highest paid in one day.
And he deserves it, and he's a great motivator. Yes. So.
And now Vitale, 33-year-old ex-running back for Nevada, will be coaching the bowl game, and his brother is on the team as a running back.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you're from Monpoke.
Okay.
Monpoke, California.
There you go. So how is the Heisman Trophy presentation going to shake out Saturday?
Well, they took 4, and they took Bryce Young, he had 3,500 yards passing, 4,322 yards passing, 43 touchdowns, and he averaged 351 yards per game. Had that great game against Georgia, great comeback moment against Auburn. He's the favorite. C.J. Stroud's numbers very similar. He has 3,862 yards passing with 38 yards touchdowns, and he averages 332 yards per game. So very similar. But the big win in that loss that C.J. Stroud took to Michigan's tough, even though he did throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. But and then Kenny Pickett, which came from Pitt. He's also was invited to New York. He had 42 touchdowns and 4,319 yards. But do you know who the leading passer in college football in the nation is, Joe?
Not offhand.
Well, we're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go to Western Kentucky's Bailey Zappi with 5,545 yards passing with 56 touchdowns. He doesn't even get an invite.
He'll be lucky to get a few votes.
I don't think he got any votes. But anyway, he's exciting to watch, and he's one of our first picks that we're going to pick when we do next week. We'll do the bowl games for college football. I'm really upset about Willie Anderson Jr. not getting invited at least. He had 86 tackles. 50 of those were solo tackles. He had 30 tackles for loss, and he had 14 and a half sacks. Aiden Hutchinson got the last spot to go, and he had only 15 tackles for loss and 13 sacks. So a little bit unbalanced on, I think that the best defensive player is definitely Will Anderson Jr. from Alabama, number 31.
But the one invited was Aiden Hutchinson.
Aiden Hutchinson, who, as I said,
Michigan.
He only has 15 tackles for loss and 13 sacks. So.
Well, I guess your buddy there, Anderson, he finished 5th or worse in the voting. He must have, because he wasn't invited.
He wasn't invited.
But,
so
then again,
maybe Alabama, people in the SEC they only had one vote to give, and they gave it to Bryce Young, and he should be there for sure. You got to bring Bryce Young. I mean, he's the electric quarterback, and he's what everybody's talking about right now, and the favorite to win it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. He wasn't going to be able to share votes with Anderson. So, Anderson got kind of left out in the cold, but the NFL is waiting soon.
Right.
And
they're saying he's coming back next year for Heisman run, but with those kind of numbers, I see him playing on Sundays.
No running backs on that list. It's just a quarterback kind of award these days. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Walker looked like he was going to get there from Michigan State. Kenneth Walker, the third, was going to get there, but I think that loss to Ohio State really just. Had any type of chances that they were going to let him get in there.
Okay. Well, your picks went 6-4 last week.
Yep, championship week 6-4, so definitely in the black, and had a little bit of money to bet on Sunday's game, so that was nice. But we'll have the picks for the bowl game starting on the next show.
Okay.
And we'll get those out, and we'll have those on the website. Make sure to check those websites because we put picks on daily for basketball. If we see the spread only comes out only two days in advance, so it's hard for us to do it on the show here.
Right. Well, there is one game on the slate this week, but it's a great one. The Army-Navy game. Army at home, favored by 7.5. The total, a minuscule 34 points.
Yeah. That seems like they'll probably stay under. But I like Army in that game. They'll cover that 7.5.
So you're kind of leaning towards Army and under.
Even though I'm a Navy veteran and I can't say believe these words are coming out of my mouth, but I'm going to take Army.
Well, you got to go with the money there.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Big Rich.
Okay.
And we'll have you on later on the You Got Host segment.
Thank you.
Next, we have our NBA analyst, Marc the Shark Sabella. How are you feeling today, Marc?
Doing great, Joe. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So let's get right to it. Which teams have been the hottest and against the spread lately?
Well, the top three have not changed in the last 2 weeks. It's Golden State, Phoenix, and Brooklyn, the beast in the East. Phoenix and Golden State actually played each other twice on each other's courts in the last 2 weeks. And I think you'll recall in our last show, Phoenix was riding a 18-game winning streak going into the Bay Area to play Golden State, and on our show we picked that Golden State should be ending their franchise record streak at that point in time. So we made the pick on the show last week, and it came home to roost. So Phoenix is still number 2, but they finished at the win streak at 18. So Brooklyn is a strange number 3. They're clearly the strongest in the East right now. But what's interesting is they are 1-6 against the top 8 teams right now in the NBA. So when they do win, they're barely winning at home right now, and they've actually been losing straight up at home recently. Last night they played a tough one with Dallas, and I don't think they covered the spread, but they got the victory in Dallas last night. Bulls would be a close number 4. They have swept both LA teams in LA and have swept at the Staples Center or whatever it's called now. And they have swept both New York teams, meaning the Knicks, and in Brooklyn in New York last week. So they are vaulting up to into the top 5. Milwaukee is surging right now. Giannis was injured and out with a bad right calf. They are surging at 15-9 right now. They're clocking in at number 5 in the power rankings. Number 9, Philly, is up from number 12. Joel Embiid is back from his injury, and as they continue to shop Ben Simmons. Finally, the surprise one is Memphis, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Memphis is now 13-10. They previously were number 21. They have moved up to the number 10 spot. They have led in their last 4 games wire to wire in every one of those 4 games. It's the first time in 25 years that that's actually happened to a team. And it's even more impressive, Joe, because they are without their superstar Ja Morant right now for an indefinite amount of time.
All right. Well, which teams have been the coldest, and should we be betting against?
The cold teams right now are Denver. They've been really struggling. The Knicks have been losing all their home games right now. Not winning on the road either, but they really have dropped some important home games against Eastern foes recently. Portland has been without Damian Lillard. He's out with a punctured lung right now, and they are giving getting lots of points even in Portland at this point in time on the spreads. OKC is 6-16, and they are the team that got absolutely drubbed by Memphis last week. Memphis, I don't know if you heard about this, Memphis beat them on December 2nd in OKC, 152-79. That's a record spread of 73 points on the win. And so that leads me to my trivia question for you this week. Do you know what record that broke and how many points was the previous high?
Well, I was hoping it would be the Lakers who did it back in the heyday of the 70s. I kind of remember them winning a game like 160-something to 99, but I can't say for sure that's the record.
Very good guess. The Lakers were actually a number 3 lead, but that was back in the 72 championship with Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain on that team.
Oh, and, Elgin Baylor and a lot of great players.
Yeah, so it broke actually. The number 1 team was a 68-point spread previously in 1991. It was Cleveland, 148, Miami 80 in Miami. And that was the previous record of 68 points. The number 2 to 6 spreads were all within the 61 to 65 point spreads, including the Lakers, and they now it's been replaced by Memphis's thrashing of OKC.
Well, Memphis was actually up 145 to 67 in that game. They were actually up by 78 at one point, and only ended up winning by 73.
Yeah. They coasted in the end.
Yeah, without a doubt. So your picks went, I believe, 7-3 last week.
Yes, sir.
Tremendous. What are some good bets for next week's action?
Well, looking at the games coming up in the next week, I'm predicting actually a lot of home dogs that are coming up this week. And as we always discuss, there's no points that come out on for another day or so. So you and I are left guessing this. But what I'm looking at, Joe, is on Thursday, tomorrow, Utah starts the road trip in the East. They will be giving 4 to Philadelphia. Utah is 16-7 straight up. They're 12-11 against the spread, but they're 3-0 straight up in their last 3 road games. And Philly is 3-7 at home against the spread. So I kind of like Utah. If they're giving 4 or so, I would probably take them. And if they're getting any points from the home, then take it. So also in every one of these games, it would be, you could always have the choice of betting the money line and just foregoing the points.
Right.
And in some cases, that may actually work in a lot of these games also. Friday, you got Brooklyn in a showdown in Atlanta. I'm predicting that Brooklyn will give 6. I'm going to say take Atlanta and take the 6 points. And Brooklyn has just not been playing well. They didn't cover last night. They're not playing well at home. They're still the number 3 power, but I would take Atlanta in the points. Boston came off a loss against your Lakers last night. They're playing in Phoenix. Phoenix is still they've started a new winning streak now. They're probably going to be favored by a touchdown. I would take Phoenix and give the 7 on something like that. On Saturday, you got Utah doing their second game of the road trip. They're going to be giving probably a 1.5 to Washington. Washington is still a top 10 team right now. I would take Washington at any points on that one, just on the quick turnaround that Utah's doing on the road. Chicago's playing at Miami. That's going to be your game of the week. Chicago is 9-4 on the road. They're 3-0 straight up in their last 3 road games. Miami is without Jimmy Butler right now, and I would be looking for Chicago to pretty much win that game. Miami won 107-104 in their only other meetup this year in Chicago. This will be a little bit of a revenge game. Golden State also plays on Saturday, probably a touchdown over Philadelphia. I would take the hot Golden State Warriors. And then rounding it off, I would take Monday. This is kind of interesting. The aforementioned Memphis Grizzlies are at home against Philadelphia. I would say -2 Philadelphia on the road, but Memphis is so hot right now. 7-3 in their last 10 against the spread, 8-5 at home, 8-5 at home against the spread. Most of these wins are coming without John Morant there and in this impressive streak that they're just dominating right now. So those are my picks. I have other picks, but I'm going to put them on our website, and all my NBA picks for the week will be on there.
All right. Well, hopefully you're as hot as you were last week. Thank you, Marc. And we'll hear from you again next week.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Our next guest on the show today is Ronnie McKinnon. How's it going today, Ronnie?
Joe, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Ronnie, you've been following college basketball lately. What's been going on?
Well, Joe, we had a switch from number 1. Duke was number 1 until they lost earlier in the week to Ohio State. So they're now number 3. Purdue's number 1. They're 8-0. Baylor number 2. They're 8-0. Again, Duke is 7-1 now at number 3. UCLA is 8-1 at number 4, and Gonzaga now has lost 2 games. They're 7-2 at number 5.
Gonzaga just lost to Alabama. Lost pretty handily too, by like 9 points in Seattle. Purdue is a unanimous number 1, and it's the first time in their history that they've ever been number 1. And I remember the old days of Glenn Robinson, and I guess they just never got that high before.
Yeah, the Boilermakers, right?
Yeah, the good old Boilermakers. And yeah, so I guess this week there's going to be some good games. Do you have a pick that you want to give the listeners?
I do. I'm actually picking UCLA, even though they're on the road, and they're playing Marquette. Marquette's actually 7-2. UCLA is still a plus 4.5 and under 139.5 for the points.
Okay. So Ronnie, you're actually a greater follower of horse racing, and Monday we heard a tragic story. What happened?
Yeah, it is tragic. Medina Spirit, the Kentucky Derby winner, was actually still has the win, but was actually found to be on some drugs from, and Bob Baffert, being the trainer, was suspended for 2 years by Churchill Downs in Kentucky. Medina Spirit was in Santa Anita, at Santa Anita Racetrack, down in Southern Cal at Arcadia, where right where I grew up, across the highway from Huntington Drive, and doing a workout. And right after the workout, actually collapsed. They're saying it was a heart attack, and they're saying it's going to take 4 weeks for the autopsy. I don't know why it will take that long, but just really sad. You know, 3-year-old colt actually will be 4 years old in April. And it's just, you know, the thing is that I've been a big follower of horse racing all my life and love it. I used to be, you know, called the sport of kings. It's just, it's great. But there's been a lot of controversy about a lot of horses dying. And of course, this has been going on for a while. They've estimated about 7 to 800 a year across the country. You know, they go through intense training at about 18 months old. Then they're launched into racing at 2 years old, and they basically still have baby teeth when they're 2 years old. So also the last bones to fuse on a horse, the vertebrae in the neck and the back, and that doesn't happen until about 6 years old. So, you know, again, very sad. Santa Anita actually had, a couple years ago, had a lot of deaths, and they were investigated by a special task force, and also the California Horse Racing Board, and they were cleared after a 9-month investigation of any real wrongdoing or any, you know, thing. But so it's just it happens a lot, unfortunately. And it's pretty sad.
Well, yeah, just a month ago, Medina Spirit was second in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and we were talking about him and making predictions on him, and
Correct.
Now just 1 month later.
Yeah,
Yes, he was found to have a steroid in his blood, one that is legal, but not on race days.
Exactly, not on race days. Exactly.
And so that's trainer Bob Baffert. I believe he's also suspended from New York racetracks too.
I believe so. Yes. Yes.
And,
actually, Churchill Downs, where, you know, the Kentucky Derby was, they suspended him for 2 years. But yeah, I believe New York also. You know, and the horse had a great career. He ran 10 races. He won 5 of them, placed at 4 of them, came in second in 4 of them, which is a place, and a show, which is third, came in at one time. So he was in the top 3 in all 10 races that he raced.
Yes. Well, Santa Anita, I guess 20 horses died this year, 20 horses died last year, 37 in 2019.
Correct.
Is there some kind of connection?
And that's when they ran the 9-month investigation, when those 30-some horses died at Santa Anita that year in 2019. And again, it was a 9-month investigation. They were cleared by a special task force, and the CHRB, the California Horse Racing Board. So, you know, it's again, it's pretty sad. They did make about 27 recommendations for safety with that 9-month investigation, and there's something they call it a sealed track, which means it's a dirt track, and it's floated, so it's packed down. They've actually now said that they're going to limit the amount of races when during the year for big heavy rain days, because usually the horses run in the rain. Now they're going to limit those races because of the wet track. So.
Okay. Well, hopefully that'll improve conditions and these tragedies won't continue to happen.
We sure hope so, and I do. I grew up there and at Santa Anita and was going to that track at 8 years old, along with Dodger Stadium. I told you when it opened in '62. You know, it was going there also. So it's a big thing for me.
Well, Ronnie, I know you're a huge baseball fan. Just quickly, what Hall of Fame news came about last week?
Well, Gil Hodges, old LA Dodger, got into the Hall of Fame, along with Minnesota pitcher Jim Cott, Minnie Minoso, who played for the Chicago White Sox, and Tony Oliva, who played for the Minnesota Twins. Those four were elected into the Hall of Fame by the Golden Days Era Committee, which is a group of 16 former players and Hall of Famers, and some other people that make the selection, and you have to get 75% of that too. So you need 12 of the 16 votes, and they do that every 6 years. They just skipped a year last year because of the pandemic. So they did it in 2014, and they would have done it last year. They did it this year instead. So.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ronnie, and we'll have you on again next week.
Joe, great. Thanks for having me.
Next up, our final guest today, we're going to talk hockey with huge fan Gator Gates. How goes it today, Gator?
Oh, I'm great, Joe. Thanks for asking.
So we might as well get straight into some picking. Who's hot in the National Hockey League right now?
Well, the hot teams would be Dallas. They're 7-0. Minnesota, they're also 7-0. Now the Rangers are the hottest. They're 11-1, but they play Colorado tonight. That should be the game of the week, actually, in my eyes. And I'd have to go with Detroit. Detroit's 5-1 in their last 6.
Glad to hear Dallas is 7-0. Started off slowly.
Yes, they're
Nice.
playing really great right now.
And who should we be betting against right now?
Well, betting against is kind of hard with these ones because a lot of them are on a big streak. To give you an example, the New York Islanders are 1-11, and they won last night against Ottawa to break their streak. But the other ones would be like Philadelphia, they're 0-9. Buffalo's 1-9. Montreal and New Jersey are both 1-6, and Arizona and Columbus are both 1-5.
Well, we've talked about this. The Islanders, we full on expect them to start improving here sooner or later. The odds finally did change. They're like 100-1 now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not having too much faith in them.
You know they're going to turn it around.
I sure
at
hope
least
so.
some. And of course, this COVID situation that they had, they're going to have to play a lot of games in bunches here and there too.
Correct.
That isn't going to help them either. But it's going to be quite the challenge.
Yeah, it sure is.
So your picks, I believe, went 7-3 last week.
Yeah, Joe.
Pretty awesome. That's tremendous. And are there some games you have that you think we should be betting on?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. 7-3 is really good. But I'm really proud that I finally broke that stupid Saturday losing streak in a big way. I went 3-0, so very happy. But my picks for this week starts Friday with 4 games. I got Colorado over Detroit, Florida to beat Arizona, Winnipeg to beat, they're in Vancouver, and Vegas should win at home against Philadelphia, I would believe. Now, Saturday I have 2 games. Washington to go up to Buffalo and win. That should be pretty easy for them. And Toronto to win at home over Chicago. That should be pretty easy for them. Now, Tuesday, my other 4 games I got is Detroit is at home against the Islanders. Detroit should win that game. They're at home. See, Joe's over here laughing at me. And Pittsburgh to beat Montreal, Winnipeg over Buffalo, and I have to take the Avs to beat the Islanders when they...
You just keep picking the Islanders to lose.
How can you not, Joe?
They're going to turn it around.
They're 1-11. You'd be losing money all the time if you were taking the Islanders.
But they just won the other day, right? This could be the start of something.
They have to go to Colorado, Joe.
Okay, it's going to be. I didn't say it was going to be easy. It's going to be. Eventually, they're going to start winning games. I'm going to stick with that.
Okay.
But we are. And that's all the picks for this week, right?
That's my 10 picks for the week, Joe. I'm
10
sorry.
picks already? Oh, my gosh. That was quick.
10 winners this week, Joe. I'm going to go 9-1 at least.
I'd love to see that. So with the Olympics coming up, are we going to have like a break? Are the NHL players actually going to go to China and play?
Well, Rod Leitner of the Vegas Knights Sunday told Sweden that he won't play in the 2022 Winter Olympics.
Goaltender for Vegas.
For Vegas, correct. The 30-year-old made the decision based on health reasons. Now, I'm not sure if that's the exact reasons. I think that's more of an excuse. But so, Joe, that got me to start thinking about this. With his decision, is that going to influence everybody else not to go? Or what's the NHL going to do? Well, what I found was that the NHL commissioner, Gary Bettman, never wanted to send the NHL players to the Olympics. The NHL have participated in 5 straight Olympics before they decided not to send players to the 2018 games. But Bettman and many NHL owners don't think that the juice is worth the squeeze. So the only way that the league office will pull out now is that they need those 3 weeks to make up games due to COVID. Now, the NHL has created a shadow schedule that will have a 1-week break instead of 3 if the players decide not to go. But U.S. will use college players to fill those roster spots if they need to.
Well, I can understand the NHL not wanting their star players going over there, possibly getting hurt, getting tired. It's a long season. It could be a long playoff season, too.
If you got COVID over there, are you going to be stuck over there?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen in China. Just about anything can happen.
See, that's scary to me. I just don't know if the risk is worth it. I don't know. I guess that's an individual.
Hopefully the players are treated well and come back safely.
Yes.
If they actually do go, whoever ends up going, even if it's college players.
Yes.
Yes. So, Gator, we do have to talk about one more subject. The Championship of Canadian Football, the 108th Grey Cup is Sunday. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, the 108th Grey Cup is Sunday at 3 o'clock, and isn't that amazing, Joe? 108. Anyways,
puts the NFL to shame, though, doesn't it?
It sure does. I mean, just even looking at that number just pops out at you. Mm-hmm. But Hamilton Tiger Cats will be hosting the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Winnipeg had beaten Saskatchewan Roughriders 21-17 in their division game, and the Tiger Cats ended up second in the East, right behind Toronto, but they did end up beating the Argonauts 27-19 in their division game to move on to the championship game. Now, due to COVID-19, the 2020 CFL season was canceled. Now, this week's game is actually a rematch of the Grey Cup in 2019. Winnipeg won 33-12 for their 11th Grey Cup victory. Hamilton had the top run defense, holding teams to 4.2 yards a rush. Winnipeg led the league in yards per pass attempt with 8.7 per reception. Now, Winnipeg is at a -3.5, -195 on the money line, and Hamilton is at a +165. The over and under is 44.5. I'm going to take the home dog. The Tiger Cats are 6-1 against the spread, and playing at home should be a little tough for the Blue Bombers, I would think.
You know, having listened to that, just on principle, I like the 3.5 at home in a championship game. I think that's a pretty good pick.
I think we can probably win straight up.
Right. Well, thank you, Gator. And we'll hear from you later on the You Got Hosed feature.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. So appreciate it.
Sponsored by MXE Media. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time for the moments we've all been waiting for, the stories that make us furious about bets that appeared surely to be winners, but in the end something went horribly wrong and they ended up being losers. It's a segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed.
You got hosed.
So, Big Richard, do you have a you got hosed story this week?
Absolutely, Joe. I mean, I'm sitting there. I'm loving Atlanta. I mean, Tom Brady owns Atlanta. First half, the spread was 6.5. Perfect. Take it first half for $50. Tom Brady and freaking Tampa Bay are up by 10 points. They punt the ball to Tampa Bay inside the 5, and the GOAT of all people throws an interception with 30 seconds left, and then the spread went from 10 to 3, and I got hosed.
Yeah, intercepted, returned for a touchdown with like 20 seconds left, and I can't forget Brady's look on his face, like what happened?
The same look I had, and then they come out after that, and then they kneel it. I'm like, why didn't you kneel it before?
Yeah. And as it turned out, Atlanta never scored again for the entire rest of the game.
Yeah, well, I definitely got hosed on that one.
You got hosed. So, Gator, what is your you got hosed story for this week?
Okay, Joe. Well, in German soccer, the Bundesliga, Saturday, Dortmund was playing Bayern Munich in a regular season match. Now, Felix Sweyer, he was the referee for the game. Sweyer was named in a 2005 scandal for fixing matches. He was banned for 6 months for accepting 300 francs to make an incorrect decisions in the match, where he was an assistant referee. Now, in Saturday's game, Bayern Munich player caused a foul that made a Dortmund player touch the ball with his hand. Felix turned down the penalty, but gave Bayern the penalty kick for the handball. Munich scored the winning goal, and they won the game 3-2. Now, that wasn't the only questionable decision. There were a lot during that whole game. But, Joe, when you have a referee that has fixed matches before, put him in as the head referee in the biggest game in Germany, I'm not sure what else you would expect. So whoever put their money on Dortmund Saturday got hosed.
Yeah, and he will always have a job in the NBA waiting for him, too.
That's great, Joe, yes.
No doubt about that.
Joe, do you have a you got hosed story for this week?
Well, yeah, I feel I got hosed. I had Wake Forest and Pittsburgh over 71.5 points in last Saturday's ACC championship game, and it started off beautifully. Wake Forest is leading 21-14 with over 3 minutes left in the first quarter. At this point, the teams were on pace to score over 175 points. But then it was like the Forest limbs all got cut off. The Demon Deacons never scored again in the final 48 minutes. Final score, Pitt 45, Wake Forest 21, under the 71.5. Wake Forest hosed me.
No, that was terrible, Joe. You got more than hosed. That's way terrible. 48 minutes, for real.
And we have two more You Got Hosed stories, and these two are coming from Michael Selecki. We're Dateline, Marseille, France, June 11, 2016, according to Wikipedia.com, at the United European Football Association, that's UEFA, championship. British supporters clashed with fans and authorities alike before a single game was played. Well, there were reports of gangs of football hooligans igniting the fires of discontent, and despite the fact there was also a Russian contingent caught up in this blender of heartache and misery, it didn't matter. The corresponding response consisted of law enforcement, tear gas, and a water cannon. Specifically, you got hosed.
Literally, they got hosed.
And the second one, Dateline, again, Michael Selecki, November 2021 in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, according to WTMJ.com, in a fracas that led to multiple law enforcement injuries over the course of 51 arrests, random fires, and an airborne barrage of debris forced authorities to take a different approach. Cars were set ablaze. Another had a bicycle placed firmly through its windshield. Fortunately, due in part to the large number of minors on the scene, police were able to eventually restore law and order well into the night via less lethal methods when flares and fireworks met with a cannon full of water, meaning, that's right, you got hosed.
You got hosed.
Thank you again, Michael Selecki, for your You Got Hosed moments.
You got hosed.
So that's all for this week's show. I'd like to thank my guests, Big Richard Martin, Ronnie McKinnon, Marc the Shark Sabella, and Gator Gates, our producer, our engineer, our editor, and everyone for listening. We'd like you to visit our Covering the Field website to check out our many articles and our daily picks of the week. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Give us your feedback, your You Got Hose moments, and any other comments you'd like to give us. And find us on Twitter at Covering Field. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show, and you'll hear us again next week on another episode of Covering the Field.
You've been listening to Covering the Field, a CM World Services and the Sage production.